What's up, guys? Welcome back to Photo Conversations, where we have conversations about photography, film, and so much more about life. It's always exciting to be here to talk to you and share a few things here and there. So this video today is inspired by another video that I watched on Instagram. It has been making rounds on social media, I think Instagram and TikTok. So it's a video of a creative, a photographer. I think he's a photographer and filmmaker. So in this video, we see the filmmaker wake up in the morning, carries his equipment, puts on his bag, carries the lights, he's carrying the tripods and all the gimbals and all these things. He carries them, walks out of the house, probably going for a gig to work. And then the next frame, we see the photographer coming back with his equipment, dumps his equipment down, and then goes to his bed to rest. But as he hits the bed, he receives another call, calling him for another gig. So he picks up his equipment and walks out again. I think this scene is very common to all creatives, all photographers and filmmakers. We see this quite often. We experience this on a daily basis, whereby you've reached a point where you have so many gigs, you have so many assignments, in that now it has turned into a roller coaster where you just pick up your bag, go out, and as you come back in, you get another call, you get back out. So it's sort of like a roller coaster. It's sort of like a conveyor belt now. Everything is in auto mode. Go shoot, edit, deliver. Go shoot, edit, deliver, repeat, that kind of thing. So yeah, I watched that video, and I mean, it's nice to look at how they depicted the life of a photographer in just a few seconds, and how accurate it is, to see a photographer come in and go out, come in and go out, and we are on the repeat cycle. So what comes to mind when I see this video? When I watch this video, what came to mind for me is, yes, it gets to a point where the craft that you once loved becomes routine, becomes monotonous, becomes boring, and the focus now comes to be about making the money, surviving and paying your bills and having your company grow. And I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money and wanting to see your business grow and wanting to, to have more turnover, have more work coming, have more clients. I mean, that's what the goal is all about in the end. We need to be able to survive with the craft the craft of our choice. Yeah, so that's what has inspired the video today. And for me, it's a big question. What do you do as a creative? What do you do as a photographer and filmmaker when the craft that you once loved, when the craft that you once had passion for gets boring, becomes monotonous, and you feel like you don't want to work again? Usually for any craft, it is a cycle. For any job, it's a cycle. And the cycle starts from the point of curiosity, the point of wanting to learn something, the point of having a spark ignited in you, to the point of where you're now a professional, you've achieved so much, and there's not much else to do. So it is a cycle that keeps going, and if you're not aware of it, you might end up, getting burned out, and everything ceases to make sense. So I just want to break down this cycle, and then at the end of it all, we will look into what can we do when everything gets boring. What do you do when the craft that you once had passion for becomes boring? When you don't want to pick up a camera anymore and go out there to film the birds, take pictures of the flowers, take pictures of people. I remember myself when I was starting out as a photographer, I carried a camera with me every single day. And at that time I was at the university, so I used to walk, those people that know Namuong or the railway line, I used to walk along the railway line, and I had a camera with me every time, and I took pictures. I had this Sony Cybershot that I bought 80,000 shillings, and I loved it so much, and at the time it had amazing picture quality. So right now I have lots of gear. I have probably 3 or 4 cameras with me, but sometimes I feel like not picking up a camera and going to do the thing that I loved so much, the craft that I had so much passion for. And what causes this really? Where does this come from? This kind of burnout happens to each and every creative. You could be a designer, you could be a photographer, a filmmaker, you could be, even for the jobs that we know, maybe engineering, the formal jobs, being a lawyer, being a doctor, all the things at some point become boring because you've seen it all. First point of the cycle is ignition. And ignition for me is the point where you get your first spark of inspiration to start doing the craft that you do, to start taking a photograph, to start filming, to start designing, to start, whatever vocation it is for you, whatever job it is for you. So there is a point of ignition, the point of inspiration. That inspiration could come from somewhere. It could be maybe a documentary you watched and then you're inspired. It could be a person or a friend that inspired you into this craft. At that point, you are a bit naive about the entire industry, about the entire craft. But again, you're very curious because you want to learn. And there's also that point of frustration where you're so frustrated because you're not learning, and it keeps you on your toes because you want to learn new things. And then, you're all fired up because it's still new. It's like having a new girlfriend. You're so excited. You're all working on adrenaline. So that's the first stage of any craft that you might take up. So that is stage one. Then stage two for me is, I call it the eureka moment. The eureka moment is when you get the sense of self-realization in the craft. You start to realize the things that didn't make sense to you in the craft. You start to realize them. I'll give you an example, like composition in photography. It's something that took time to sink down in my head. But now there's a stage whereby I started to sink into the elements, the fundamentals of the craft. I started to understand, the color theory. I started to understand the mechanics of the camera. How does the shutter work, and how does aperture work? How does ISO work? And now the curiosity now turns into a realization of I can now fully grasp the elements and the concepts of the craft. It's a very exciting stage when it comes to learning a craft. So at that stage, you're really ignited. You're full of vitality. You want to go out and experiment. Actually, this stage also has a bit of experimentation because now you know different things. You've understood different principles, and now you want to blend them together and be able to create. This stage is a very creative stage for artists. You want to go out there still and work. So I call part 3 of the learning curve of any craft the survival stage. In the survival stage, you have fully understood the concepts, the principles, the fundamentals of the craft. You're so good at the craft, you could do anything that is thrown at you. You could handle any kind of work that is thrown at you. So now at the survival stage, you also realize that you need to make money out of the craft. You have a couple of clients that are paying for the service. Then you become sort of like a roller coaster that produces work. You move from one client to another, and you're excited because you're making money, and you're gaining traction on social media. You're gaining traction in the industry. You're making friends. You're making connections. But also at this stage, that's when you start to get overwhelmed. You start to get tired. You start to become like, the video that I talked about at the beginning, the video of the guy who comes in with equipment from a job and then gets a phone call and then walks out again. So that is a survival stage. You're in survival mode. You're excited about the money, but at the same time, you are starting to burn out because you have more than you can handle. So from that stage, we go to stage 4. Stage 4 is the arrogance stage. It's a stage of, I know it all. What haven't I done, The stage where you've had so many high-level clients, you have a huge portfolio, you are fairly known, you're famous. Everybody knows you on social media. You have so many views, and you make so much money that you're now arrogant. You start to what do they call it? You start to nitpick your clientele. Sometimes you get calls and you don't want to pick them up. Or sometimes you say, I'm off for a holiday. I'm not working this season. Or sometimes you even you artificially create scarcity for your services so that your presence or your demand raises. So I think really at this stage you're arrogant. And for me, the stage of arrogance, the stage of I know it all, is usually the point where most creatives start to go down on a downward trend of losing it completely and being alienated from the industry, because as you become arrogant, as you become a know-it-all in quotes, there are young and vibrant creatives that are fighting for the spot that you once had, and trust me, it's just a matter of time, and you'll eventually be wiped out, off the face of the industry. So, for me, that is how we all start our careers and eventually end up becoming disillusioned with everything. So, having talked about the creative cycle from the point of ignition and inspiration to the point of disillusionment and alienation from the industry, then what do we do to get back the spark that we once had at the beginning? What do we do when everything is boring, monotonous, and doesn't make any sense for us? So I believe the solution to boredom, monotony, and burnout in the craft that you're doing is hidden in time. I think creatives need to go back in time and go back to the place where it all started. You need to go back and ask yourself, in the first place, why did I pick up the camera for the first time? You need to go back and ask yourself, why did I want this that I'm doing today? Why did I want the thing that I hate to do now? That is something you need to look at. For me, I think first it was curiosity. I was a very curious person, and I wanted to learn anything and everything that I came across. So there was curiosity. I wanted to learn something because I'd been inspired by somebody else doing it. So I said, let me give it a try. But then later I realized that actually when I couple photography with social media, then I could bring issues in my community, to the light. I could bring awareness. I could create awareness about issues in my society, in my community where I lived. I grew up in a slum, and we had so many issues. We had issues to do with teenagers, issues to do with children, issues to do with domestic violence, issues to do with sanitation, health and hygiene. There were so many issues. So my starting point to be a documentary photographer was my community. And it's one of the things I tell people, that if you want to start taking up any career, first do it within your community. If you can do it in your community, if it can have impact in your community, then you're definitely going to have impact on a wider scope. So for me, it was my community where I started, and that's where the spark was ignited, the spark to want to pick up a camera and take a photograph every single day, So as a creative, you need to go back to that place and ask yourself, why did I start this in the first place? What was going on in my mind when I picked up the camera for the first time, or when I picked up a guitar for the first time, when I played the piano for the first time. So when you get back to that point where you realize once again the reason why you did, why you started the craft or the career that you're in at that time, I think then eventually you can project that same energy back, at the currently where you are, to be able to get that creative energy back, to be able to get that spark again. Then the other thing for me is just stop doing what you're doing. Just stop the craft for some time. Stop taking pictures, stop filming, stop playing the guitar, stop playing any instrument, stop playing the violin. Because think about it, we spend about 5 to 7 years building this craft, and you're so immersed in this craft for years. Think about people who practice maybe an instrument like literally every single day of the year, and eventually they make it, and after making it, they're burned out. So I think sometimes we just have to stop shooting photos, just sit back and, for a moment, get yourself out of the craft. Stop talking about photography, stop talking about film, stop talking about whatever the craft is that you've been immersed in for so many years, because the mind needs a break. Go for a break. Go and see your friends, go and see family, go and have a good time, go and try out different things. Well, I believe the human body is not created for just that one thing. So if you've been doing photography and you identify yourself with photography and all you think about is photography and film, so what do you do when it stops to make sense? It could actually cause an emotional breakdown. So I would say sometimes just stop and then go find other things to do. Go and try to play basketball. Go and try to swim. Go and try to play an instrument. Learn new things, because after experiencing other things, then finally, it's very probable that you're going to ignite that flame that was once there at the beginning, because you're putting yourself in a vulnerable situation of learning something new again. So it awakens the ignition and inspiration stage that you once had and lost. So I really believe going out there and trying different things will really help you as a burned out creative, as a burned out photographer, as a burned out filmmaker. Go try out things. Then the other point is you could actually also speak to other people. One of the things I love about photography and film is that it has given me an opportunity to speak to people in the industry, to speak to filmmakers that have achieved more than me, that are well accomplished more than I am. So go out there and speak to people and ask them, what do they do when everything ceases to make sense? So you need to go out there and find out from other people. Probably, like they say, once a problem shared is a problem solved. So go out there and talk to people that have been in the industry for years, and probably they'll give you a hint or two. Then the other thing also is you could actually go out there and try out different genres of photography and film. If you've been filming weddings, go and put yourself in a vulnerable state of shooting something you've never shot. Put yourself in a position of learning afresh. So when you try out different things, in fact, you might be able to discover that you're actually good at other genres of photography. I for one, I started out as a photographer and I didn't have any interest for videography. But after doing a lot in photography, at some point I picked up the camera and said, okay, this DSLR camera could actually also make video. And then I experimented. And now guess what? I'm actually so much in love with video because I now realize voice, color, and it's a more rounded, video is a more rounded craft, it's very technical, but again, very creative. So all these things come together to make me want to do it. I know for other fields like medicine, you can't do that. You can't wake up one morning and you're like, you know what? I'm tired of being a heart surgeon. I want to be a dentist, So yeah, but at least for the creative world, you have time to go and try out something different. If you've been a guy doing monochromes, go and try out, color photography. If you've been shooting wildlife for a long time, go and shoot people and vice versa, exchange. And only then will you be able to find new ground to be able to enjoy this craft that you once really loved. The other thing is you need to be aware of that cycle that I talked about in the beginning, the cycle of ignition and inspiration, where your idea starts, where the learning is intense and you're so focused, to the point where now you're experimenting with new techniques. You're frustrated a little bit, but it's a bittersweet thing. You're learning, you want to be better, to the third stage, where now it's survival stage. It's a roller coaster. You want to make the money, so you make the money quickly, but then you get burned out, and then you get to the point of arrogance. I know it all. I don't want, nobody can tell me nothing, you know. So that point, you need to be aware of that cycle and know that it happens subtly inside of your mind. That cycle is happening, and just be aware of that cycle. And when you're aware of it, then you know how to combat this vicious cycle of boredom, you know, and monotony and repetition. So thank you so much for watching this YouTube video. I hope you're inspired once again to pick up a camera and go and take photographs, to pick up your guitar and go and make music, to pick up whatever it is, man, to go and make the world a better place. Catch you on the next Photo Conversations episode. Feel free to subscribe to our channel. Don't be compelled to, but feel free if you want to subscribe. If you want to get more content like this, subscribe and hit the bell button to be able to be notified about the new content that we'll be producing. Cheers and God bless you. See you on the next one. Peace out.